Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.
Welcome to Good Morning Hospitality, your one-stop shop for the latest news, noteworthy trends, and thought-provoking discussions across the industry. From hotels and short-term rentals to all things travel and hospitality, you'll find each episode equips you with the information that you need to start your week. Join us on Good Morning Hospitality every Monday, wherever you get your podcasts.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's just the two of us.
I know, just the two of us. Our song comes back on.
I know. How was your weekend?
Oh, just another beautiful weekend here in Denver, 100 degrees. And, you know, we had a couple storms. It's been a weird summer. We've been getting a lot of thunder and lightning, rain, like downpour, complete, just gnarly weather. So it's been a good weekend, though, so far. Can't complain.
Nice. Yeah, I did a quick trip to New Orleans last week, and I don't know why it's been so hot in Miami, and I don't know why I thought it would be like slightly cooler in New Orleans, and that was not the case. And there was this hilarious like weather station graphic from a local channel, and it like the temperature said, "You are a crawfish. This is the boil," as the temperature. So yeah, it was very warm. And now I'm back in Miami where it is also still really warm. So just kind of smothering down here.
Yeah, you can't escape it. I love it.
Mm-mm.
Well, it's definitely, I think we've proven that when we don't have Michael and it's just you and me, the episode numbers just skyrocket. So I'm excited for this. You know, just kidding, Michael, if you're watching or listening on the back end. No, it's nice to be able to sit down with you, but we do miss you, Michael. We do miss having our third Tres Amigos. Poor Spanish on my end, but
that was awful.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
The intention was there. So
yeah,
I know, but he's enjoying the beach with his family. So that's honestly, he's more comfortable than we are right now. So I think we're both just a little jealous.
Yeah, and hopefully, Michael, if you are listening, put on some sunscreen if you haven't on. You know, just
sunscreen.
Make sure you layer. You and Oliver, the whole family, everybody. But no, this is exciting. So for context for listeners, live viewers right now, this episode was kind of set up in Barcelona. We had the opportunity to chat with Louis while we were attending the Scales Rental conference. And from that conversation, I think the three of us were like, we got to get this guy legitimately on the show, not as just part of like our micro mini episode interview series. Just going into a lot of stuff. Obviously, the title of this episode is The Next Generation of Hospitality. So getting to talk to Louis Andrews, who is now heading OVO Network out in France. So speaking of Louis, should we just bring him on? Is it time
Let's do it.
Let's welcome him.
Hello,
Louis Andrews.
How are we?
Doing
Fantastic.
Great, man. How are you?
Very, very good. It's not blistering hot where I am, so I'm doing better than you guys.
Yeah, that's good for you.
But you also have had a pretty fun weekend, so we'll
Yes.
We won't have to bring up on a live broadcast, but it sounds like you've had a lot of fun. Louis, my friend, it's so good to see you again. I would love actually for you to just give yourself a quick intro for anyone tuning in right now, and then for that intro to be done, Brandy, you can take it away and go into questions since we had a lot of the same ones kind of lined up for you. So,
Cool.
Louis, go for it.
Sure. So my name is Louis Andrews. I am 28 years old. I'm currently the director and president of OVO Network France. OVO Network is a software solution plus booking platform for owners of high-end chalets in the mountains. So with capacities of between 8 and 12 people, and often with extra amenities such as swimming pool, hot tub, jacuzzi, sauna, etc., etc.
I love it.
That sounds very nice.
Yes.
So, I guess kind of easing into the conversation, since we're talking about the next generation, this is a family business. So can you kind of walk us through, that transition? And since you kind of grew up around the business, is this something that you always wanted to get into? How did that all come about?
Yeah, sure. It's an interesting story, hopefully. The company was founded back in 2010 by my dad and one of his neighbors. The neighbor, Richard Little, being an angel investor who kind of has got a background in technology and who is based out of the UK. And him and my dad basically became ski buddies. So they were on chairlifts and obviously skiing, but when you're not skiing, you're on the chairlift sitting around, talking, chatting. And I think both of them had a fairly fair sense of entrepreneurship about them. And my dad was just coming off the back of developing a booking platform for AJ Hackett. AJ Hackett being the inventor of bungee jumping, who happened to be another neighbor. So he basically helped build this system that allowed bungee jumpers to book their bungee jump. And then alongside Richard, they basically started to look around themselves and realized that a lot of the chalets and the mountain properties that were around them were empty half the time. This is back in a period where basically Airbnb is very much still a baby. They're not really established in Europe. Nobody's really heard of them yet, which seems like it would have been ages ago, but it was actually only 10 years ago. So they kind of started to develop the business together like that. Very quickly, one of our principal foundations was kind of the provision of software. That's kind of like the main thing that we do is we've developed our own in-house PMS. We do our own marketing. We build our own websites. There's like a huge part of our main core part of our business is the software development, led by a software developer, Luke Bagshaw, who's based out of Australia. And the business basically grew very naturally for the first 10 years of its existence. So by that, I mean, it was literally knocking on doors and talking to friends and other ski buddies and saying, hi, do you want to make a bit of money with your empty ski chalet? So the business grew to about 130 properties approximately. And then something happened, which you may have heard of, which is the pandemic. So the pandemic, we all went into lockdown. And interestingly, the question was actually raised of whether we should close the business and just walk away with the money that was in the bank. And this is before I was majorly involved at all. I was kind of mainly just working for pocket money. And occasionally, doing some floor plans and some tech setup and some basic stuff like that. But during COVID, what happened is that obviously kind of the whole world came to a halt. There was the question of like, okay, well, do we stop what we're doing? But in the end, what we decided to do was kind of like reduce our team for a while and really kind of just focus on the core team players that were necessary to run the business. And then we started to develop a kind of a counterattack, shall we say, of like how can we actually seize this challenge and seize this opportunity and really push forwards. And it just so happened that the month after the French lockdown was lifted was our best month ever in terms of gross booking value. And I think our top 30 months now in terms of gross booking value have all been since COVID. So it was a pretty major success. And as I was saying to you, both in Barcelona, basically what happened is that I became heavily involved on both the guest and the owner side of the business during the COVID lockdown because je suis aussi français, so I can speak both languages needed to run and to survive this type of crisis and to reassure all our French owners and our French guests that were obviously going ballistic. So whilst that was happening, I basically supported the team, and then after the COVID lockdown was tasked with kind of creating the new wave and the new generation within OVO Network, and that's kind of where we're still growing and where we're still at today.
It's such a fun story. And I have there's so many things I want to put pins in, but one of them is just so here we had this kind of phenomenon of everybody just left the cities. And so a lot of the traditional VR, like people are doing, 1 to 3 months on the Jersey Shore or Myrtle Beach or wherever it is. Did you find that like people were leaving Paris and coming to the mountains for like the whole summer? Was that kind of thing happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think we didn't really have that many long stays. Interestingly, some of the longest stays that we had were very much during lockdown. So whilst nobody was allowed to travel, you'd have some people that would say, well, I'm going to travel and risk it, and I'm just going to stay for 2 months. We had a group, our first ever group of TikToker influencers that came over during that time and totally ripped the chalet to shreds, which was not very enjoyable. But no, I think it was mainly like going back down to our offering, and I'm sure we'll touch on this later, is that, you know, we sell, our portfolio is like incredibly well curated and very specific to its niche, which is, you know, high-end chalets in the mountains. And in the mountains, I mean, usually secluded, you know, there's no neighbors, for groups of between 8, 12, it goes all the way up to like 22, which means that obviously for families that are wanting to get together, you know, after the lockdown, for example, it was the ideal scenario because there's no neighbors, you don't have to run into anyone, there's enough capacity in the chalet to accommodate everyone from your family. And then on top of that, you know, there's the extra equipment like the swimming pool or the jacuzzi, which means that you've actually, if you want, you can actually just stay at the property for the whole week or the whole 2 weeks and still have a really enjoyable holiday. So that's kind of how it happens.
Yeah, it's all like self-contained. You just have to get there and you're set. I love that. And so what's interesting is that so here we talk a lot about operators that are doing, you know, they'll be in business for a long time and then they're looking for a software solution that is very tailored to them. So then they build, and there's that decision of, you know, build versus buy for your technology. And so from what you're saying, it was kind of the opposite. You had built this technology and then kind of the vacation home business built around it. And I find that really interesting because that's a point of contention, I think, or not contention, but maybe tension within our businesses. It's like, do you make that leap and spend that money on building out a system? And so what has it been, you know, I'm assuming you've had to kind of have different iterations of the technology, and kind of what has the technology growth looked like?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's quite interesting for us as well to look at it from an inside point of view, because we're so like what in my mind, when I started to attend like industry events, for example, so the first one we attended was the VRWS, which was in Annecy in our backyard. I've actually still got the banners of the VRWS on our balcony just outside. But what was interesting is that naively, very much so, I basically rocked up to the VRWS expecting everyone to have quite a similar business model to us. And then basically realized that whilst we were discussing and having all these discussions during the roundtables and talking about people's biggest challenges, everyone was saying, oh, well, our PMS. And I was going, but wait, what? you've not got your own PMS? And it's like, and then obviously then the discussion's like, oh, the over-reliance, I talked about this in Barcelona, but like the over-reliance on PMSs, but then the over-reliance on the OTAs. And then it's like, well, what does your business do then? If your bookings are coming from the OTAs and then you're managing the business through the PMS, it's like, okay, so where have you actually got the power and the control? And I think that that's something that's really important about us, is that we've got full control. You know, like we've just launched our rebrand today. And obviously that would have been as easy, even though obviously it was very complicated to do, but it would have been even more so complicated and would have had way less control if we didn't have that full, you know, overarching control over the system and the softwares. Regards to the developments and how we've kind of implemented that over the years, obviously it started with the very basics, and then little by little we've implemented all these new functionalities. You know, we've got security deposits, we've got you know, your overall but payment balance deposits, we've got the website builders, we've got we've plugged into a channel manager for the distribution. We've got our whole inquiry management system is built within our PMS as well. And everything is always tailor-made to our needs, which is the main thing, which is a source of joy and a source of frustration, because it's a source of joy because you've got the control over everything, but it's a source of frustration because sadly we've got our brains wired to always looking at third-party solutions. And instead of saying, yeah, well, let's partner with this guest app or with this inquiry manager app, what we always end up doing is saying, oh, well, we could do this ourselves and it would be more appropriate to our needs. But obviously in terms of timeline, or that pushes things way further back. So that's something we have to manage as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like, are you a tech company? And it's not even just about identity, but it's about resources. And this is a very, the margins are not great in hospitality as a rule. So it's like with this extra, like, where do you want to allocate your funds and your energy? So I think it's very interesting. I don't envy the build side of all of this, I think. But I guess I am. One thing that struck me is like the power and the control, because that is something that, I am personally fighting on almost daily basis, is like getting exactly what I want. And there are some things that I'm willing to say like, okay, I don't really need that. It's a nice to have, but it would be great if I just had all the things that I wanted. So that feeling of control over your business, I think that's wonderful. That's great.
Definitely. And so I'm curious, all of this was built prior to you really getting fully hands-on, especially during COVID and up to today. And congrats on the rebrand and getting that all wrapped up. And it's awesome that it landed on today while you're on the show. Yeah. So everyone listening or tuning in, check it out. But I'm curious to know, with this being built prior to you coming in and taking over operations and really putting your touch on things, what has this transition been like? And does part of you even wish that you just got to start over from scratch, or do you like that what you've had like established in the beginning? What's kind of your overall mindset as you've really stepped into the business?
Yeah, I think where we've been, and when I say we, I mean like meaning kind of the team at Ovo Network France, which is a subsidiary of the mother UK company, and the team at Ovo Network France is that we're all based out of Annecy, which is the town that we're in, and which is like 40 minutes from the main mountains where all our chalets are. And we provide kind of like the ancillary services to the mother company. So all the things that's like marketing, owner sales, and things like that. Well, that's kind of where we position ourselves right now. And I think that with regards to the inheritance side of things, I think we've been really lucky because we've inherited a business that at its core was already successful, especially during COVID. And that's where it's kind of interesting now, is that it's very easy to surf the wave and ride the wave out during COVID, when whilst it's stressful to be in a COVID world, the bookings are coming in and you're generating a lot of revenue, and it's kind of like, oh, cool, we're all young, we're all here, and we're riding this wave. What's really interesting, and what I keep on saying to my team, is that now the brakes have kind of been slammed on, and it's kind of like, okay, well, now we actually need to work for the success that we've been having for the past two years. Not to say that we haven't been working, but obviously you kind of get my point, is that all of a sudden you need to be much more focused. But I think that, again, going back to the inheritance thing, is that I think we're all really appreciative of not only what was built before us, but also the fact that we've kind of been tasked with taking over, in some aspects. I mean, even like our main UK director now is somebody that's new to the team as well. Like, there's very much like it's a phoenix. It's a renaît de nos cendres is how you say it in French. But we're being born from the ashes, and there's a real, I think there's a pride in that, and especially as time moves on, like with things like the rebrand, is that we're really starting to leave our mark on things and building something that we feel is better, or an evolution of what came before.
And so, as someone who has recently gone through a rebrand, and I know kind of the intricacies of all of this, what was the reasoning behind the rebrand? Just time for a change, or kind of what led you to that decision?
Well, it's quite interesting, because I think that we never had, whilst we've had designers in house, we've never had like somebody that's very firmly a web designer, i.e. graphic designer, even though our lead software developer has actually had quite a lot of experience in the past like that. And we also work with graphic designers as well. But the reality is that I think that it wasn't a focus. And I think that more and more, especially I feel with our generation, we kind of understand the value of like a good identity. And we really feel like brand image is something that we want to kind of have confidence in. And I think it is a big question about confidence, because if you're wanting to put huge billboards out in resort, you want the design to look good. And the reality is that previously, whilst I keep on saying, cool, we're a software company, I'm not sure if our branding should show that. And our branding before was very much like Ovo Network. And it's like, what? Well, first of all, our name is not self-explanatory. And then if our logo isn't either, it's kind of like, okay, well, at what point do we kind of manage to actually communicate to guests and to owners what we are and what we do? And interestingly, like the joke that I was saying earlier on today is that the very first meeting I ever had with our current head of marketing, who joined us in August 2020, was literally to discuss a rebrand. So like from that point on, so it was like very much like her first day, she was like, okay, I need to change all this. It looks terrible. Where do I start? And it's taken a while, but we've got there, and we've been really happy with where we are as well. Like we're really pumped about this new identity.
Well, oh, go ahead. Okay. So I think it's definitely a shown sign of the generation, transition, I think, because I think a lot of us in our, whether you're in your early 30s or even younger, I think brand for us, like you said, it's confidence. It shows who we are. We like to have that showcase, versus a lot of companies when, 20 years ago, they didn't need a fancy logo and all this other like website to be, flashy and showcasing and all this other stuff, due to this one, obviously the way that the digital landscape was. But especially for a new generation coming in, I think, brand and the way you display yourself is super important. So, I could probably tell that's what went through your guys' head right when you went to that meeting, going in like, hey, we need to discuss a rebrand. Because
I think the other point that I think is really important as well is the trust element. And obviously, as booking platforms and property managers, the reality is that we're competing with the OTAs. Okay, so Airbnb's like website is super functional and looks good and is identifiable. I wouldn't say the same about Booking.com, but there's definitely an element of design that's gone into that. And the reality is that if we want to attract direct bookings, and Ovo Network, like historically, we've been between 85 and 75% of all our bookings have come direct. And I think that a large part of that and a large player of that is because we've managed to express and communicate trust through our branding and through our website, in order to make people say, okay, well, I'm not going to book on Airbnb. I'm going to book directly with this website because I feel I can trust it. So that's kind of like also at the heart, was really to try and make sure we were keeping up with the times, because I think that our branding just at some point just became maybe slightly outdated, and now it's just about kind of, again, seizing back that control.
80% direct bookings. That is goals for me. We have that would be amazing. And I think that, to your point about like the refresh and matching the personality of the brand, you have this really luxury product, and you want to be able, your brand personality needs to match what the product is. And that's kind of something we went through. Ours was very like corporate before, and that's not the vibe we want when you're coming to Miami or New Orleans. Like, so you want to make sure that your brand matches the product. And then you mentioned that your, France division is kind of more rural. So how do you manage your staff? Do you have like all of your admin people work wherever and your ops people are local? What's that mix like?
That is the question that we're kind of all asking ourselves, I think, at the minute. I mean, but in a good way. I think that what's been really interesting is that the way that the business was run and managed for the first 10 years was digital nomads. So literally people all across the world, and all kind of working with the lifestyle business. So it was very much, like you work the hours that you want, when you want, from wherever you want, and that's all fine and dandy. The reality is that, today, obviously, as we grow, there's more and more expectations, and even just from a pure cash flow point of view, at some point we're obviously spending a fair bit of money, so we need to make a fair bit of money as well. So it's kind of how to balance all of that out and to make sure that everything is managed in the right way. And I think that's something that we're trying to do more and more. Is we're trying to, like, one of my key words at the minute is accountability, basically. So that's what I'm trying to push, is that I want everyone to kind of be more and more accountable.
Yeah, that's The accountability piece is something that I think, as someone who's tried to like instill that down the different layers of your company, it's something that you think you don't realize it's going to be as difficult as it's going to be. And I think that I kind of run into this, you don't want to micromanage people in order to have accountability. But you discover along the way that some people don't really work well when they're kind of left to their own devices to be accountable. So I think I think we're always learning about like kind of adjusting our management style to make sure that you have that.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, again, like going back to the confidence and the trust thing. For me, that's the heart of what I do. I try and make sure that people are happy in their jobs, that they enjoy what they're doing, that they feel that there's a career trajectory that they can follow, that they're growing, that they're learning, but also that they feel that they've got, my support and the support of the management team to really, help them be more confident. And obviously, that is sometimes by providing them with, clearer guidelines that they can follow. And then at the end of the day, they'll be able to kind of fly by flapping their own wings.
Yeah, that's great. Well, before we wrap up, I kind of wanted to get your perspective on the changing European STR landscape here in the States. There's been a lot of talk of consolidation. There is certainly, if some sources would say there is an Airbnb collapse, calling back to our previous episodes, which is obviously not happening, but there is some sort of a slowdown. So just curious, is the European market mirroring what's happening here in the States? What are you seeing?
Yeah, I think we're always going to be slightly behind you guys, I think, still. However, I just feel there are more and more key players that are coming out of Europe that I feel are also really strong. I feel like there was a period basically where, it was quite hard to differentiate from different companies and nobody had a clear brand. And again, because we're fighting with the Airbnbs, it's like, okay, well, what's the alternative? And none of the alternatives were good enough. However, yeah, there is definitely consolidation on that front and major players that are coming up. And, people there's mergers and acquisitions going on all the time as well. So there's visibility of that. And, especially in our market, for example, our market is becoming more and more competitive and more saturated. And, there's only a finite amount of high-end rental chalets in the mountains, which again is our very precise niche. So that's kind of the landscape where we're fighting at the minute. But that's also what makes it exciting.
Exactly. I'm also curious. I've been having a lot of chats with people from outside the industry who are looking to invest in companies in the short-term rental industry as a whole, whether they're a tech provider or a management brand. I'm curious to know, what's your thoughts on tech side of things when it comes to operating, especially your guys' type of home in Europe versus what you've heard from people in the States. Obviously, we have very different tech stacks and other things like that, but just kind of wanted to see what your thoughts were on that, the tech landscape.
Yeah, totally. I think the reality is that I feel like there's a lot of really good solutions out there now. But again, going back to what we were saying previously, that it's at the same time quite alien to me in the sense that, we're so used to having built our own tech stack. And, apart from a channel manager, that's basically the only tech that we use outside of our own PMS and our own systems and Google Drive and Gmail. So that's kind of it. So again, it goes back to the control stuff we were saying, but I really, really like that aspect of it. But at the same time, I think that it's something that, I don't know if we could say it's unachievable, but I think if you're a company that's starting afresh, today, it must be really, really hard to not just go the route of finding the best software solution or the software providers out there, because the reality is that there's loads of really, really good tools. And a lot of them we'd like to start using. It's just that there's always barriers to development and that sort of.
Yeah, that's sometimes when I've been asked my advice, like for a newer or maybe smaller property manager, what's like the best route to take for your tech stack? Yeah. And then it's like, is it all in one? Is it best in class? Does it build your own? And I think really only you as the manager can know what your core strengths are. But I would say that you guys are very much a good outlier in that you have like all this control, you have this great brand, your own tech. I think that a lot of that is really admirable. And it's fun to see people do things a different way, because everybody's trying to figure out how to run this business, and this industry's been around for a while and no one has totally nailed it down. But it's always interesting to see a different journey through this industry.
Yeah, and I totally, I'm not a huge fan of just following what everyone else does. And therefore it definitely is quite refreshing to not necessarily, consider ourselves as having an entirely different solution to anyone else, but at least to be able to exchange with people and learn from other people and say, oh, well, how do you do this? Oh, well, we do something totally differently. And then we kind of expand on that conversation and dig deeper in there.
Yeah.
100%. Well, and one of the things too, as we're seeing on our side of the thing, the live stream right now, you guys are obviously very popular. You have a lot of fans and a good, very well built reputation, as the live chat on YouTube is getting blown up. So it's always a good sign that, even through generational shifts and changes, that can carry through, because I think we've all seen it, no matter what industry or segment of business, right? When someone has built up a great business and then the new generation comes in, sometimes it's not the same transition and reputation that continues. So
I think, sorry, I'm interjecting.
You're good.
It comes down to management style at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And I think it's a lot about goodwill. It's a lot about, and this is, I was going to say very American of me, but you guys are American, so you won't say, you'll think this is a good thing. But, it's all about trust and just letting people, I don't know, it's all about happiness and togetherness. And whilst it's super cliche and very American, I actually really believe in that style of management of just supporting people and we may be changing our direction and changing our ambitions, but that doesn't mean that we need to do that and use the whole collective side of things and become this corporate horrendous business. On the contrary.
Yeah, well, I think there are a lot of, right now there's this big shift, I think, for the operators that have been around for several decades, where they're trying to pass off the business to the next generation. And I think that they're finding that maybe the next generation doesn't have any interest because they might have to live somewhere rural and that's not really what they want to be doing, or they just don't have an interest in the business. So I think maybe if you come to Verma in Orlando in October, there might be some people that would love to hear how you've navigated that transition successfully.
Awesome. Well, Louis, we want to say thank you for joining us on the show. I know it's a short 30 minutes in the morning for us at least, but this was one that, again, we were super excited to have, especially after getting to meet you and hang out a little bit in Barcelona. So shout out to the Scale Rentals team and crew for having us out there. Again, it was such a blast. And obviously it's carried through months after the event to continue to have great conversations with other operators and, faces around the world. So it's just always a good time to have new people on the show like you. So thank you for the time today. And thanks for everyone who watched on YouTube. It's been crazy to watch all those comments come in. But
yeah, you have a fan club.
I know. I was going to say, Louis has been pushing the traffic today. Might have to have you on more often. But no, seriously great. And then shout out to our sponsors who make this show possible. So we want to say thank you to, of course, TravelNet and Sojo. And then before we leave, any final thoughts or closing remarks from Brandy or Louis?
No, if you're in the US right now under this heat wave, stay cool, enjoy the AC. I hope most people are enjoying high season right now. So I hope everything is going smoothly.
And I'll just very rapidly shout out three of my colleagues it's their 3rd year anniversary with the company. We're going on a meal tomorrow evening. So that's Justin, Jess, and Rafi. Jess team, best team. And thank you guys for having me as well.
Of course. Shout out to them. Congrats on 3 years. And of course, like always, for everyone who watches and tunes in to Good Morning Hospitality, make sure you like and subscribe, and we'll see you again next week.
Want to stop juggling spreadsheets, calendars, and a dozen apps just to run your rentals? Lodgify makes it easy. It's an all-in-one toolkit for hosts. Build a direct booking website, automate guest messaging, and keep all your channels in sync. Running your rental business your way has never been simpler. And for Good Morning Hospitality listeners, you can get 20% off any yearly plan with code GMH20. Just check the link in the show notes to get started today.